We have a very important video on electricity for you to. Oh, sorry. Light chali gayi. Oof, Pakistan and electricity. The Wilson Center dubbed it the crisis that never ends. Lately, Pakistan's predicament has made global headlines as protests have erupted across the country against rising electricity bills amidst one of the worst economic crises Pakistan has ever seen. People are worried and in a lot of palpable pain. A crisis that was once defined by load shedding and not enough power is now a crisis of too much power and not enough money. So, how did we get here? Samjho explains. Well, first, let's break this into two parts, the historical part and the modern crisis. And let's start at the beginning. The electricity crisis is just one part of Pakistan's wider energy crisis. In the 1970s, Pakistan was headed for a major energy crash, but prevented it by building the Mangla and Terbela dams. These hydropower plants were working for us quite well, for a while. But in the 90s, we were heading towards another energy crash thanks to the soaring population, even though just 40% of us had access to electricity at the time. Building new dams is expensive and complicated, but our energy capacity was too low for our energy demands, hence load shedding. The power policy of 1994 predicted that we would have to add an increasing amount to this capacity each year to meet demand by 2018. But, surprise, our public sector didn't have the funds to bring our electricity infrastructure into the 21st century. Searching for a quick fix, as ever, they came up with the idea to bring in foreign investment and use imported fuel oils in new power plants. But import-led economies can be tricky to maintain. The problem is that if hydropower costs 1 rupee per unit to generate, power from imported furnace oil costs up to 17 rupees to generate, which was the case in 2014 when PSO officials were accused of buying substandard furnace oil and causing Pakistan billions in losses. Ye to bahut mehenga kaam ho gaya. To attract foreign companies to come and set up thermal plants, Pakistan incentivized them. Essentially, these companies got long-term contracts promising payment even if their electricity couldn't reach the consumer. And reaching the consumer ended up being the real problem. But we'll get to that a little later in the video. The problem with these IPPs is that the price of all these imports and the continuous payments to these foreign companies pushed Pakistan into a cycle of circular debt. Circular debt is caused by unpaid bills, particularly those of federal agencies, triggering a chain of delayed payments for imported furnace oil, natural gas, etc., which in turn hamper the power plant's operations and cause inefficiencies and lags in power generation and distribution. In 2023, our circular debt had risen to 2.6 trillion rupees. It's expected to reach 4 trillion rupees by 2025. And this is just one part of the problem. There's so many parts. Now, like most people, you might think Pakistan needs to fix this problem by producing more electricity. Actually, since 2017, after CPEC power plants started working, Pakistan has had a power surplus, and that's another part of the problem. In 2022, the power generation capacity of the country stood at roughly 44,000 megawatts, and our peak consumption in the summer was 28,000 megawatts. Good news, right? Finally, the end of load shedding and the economic losses from blackouts. Except that never happened. Think back. Has load shedding stopped? No. Has electricity been more reliable? Not at all. Actually, in the beginning of 2023, there was a notable countrywide blackout that cost our textile industry, our largest export sector, $70 million in just one day. Instead of making money to pay off our colossal debt, we're losing even more. The problem with surplus energy is that our distribution systems and lines are ancient and inefficient, so we lose around 17% of our electricity to them. Basically, our entire power grid is breaking down. It was established before our independence and was mostly constructed in the 60s. A lot has changed since then, but not our grid. At least not significantly. Multiple governments have announced plans to upgrade the power structure and reduce our line losses, which is the technical term for all the energy that's lost during distribution. In 2022, NEPRA reported 520 billion rupees worth of line losses. The government has recently blamed this crisis on energy theft, which redirects the blame away from them and onto the people. The 380 billion rupees lost through energy theft in the last fiscal year shouldn't happen, but the state must also take responsibility and ownership of the results of their inaction for decades. If we have so much excess electricity, your bill should decrease though, right? No. You, the bill payer, are paying for your hissa of the country's electricity. The country is producing all this extra electricity, so you still have to pay for it. So, what's the issue now? If this crisis is decades old, why are people out burning their bills in the blistering heat of summer? You see, people got their electricity bills at the end of July and basically freaked out. Bills have increased anywhere from 50 to 200%. All this during record high inflation, which stood at 29.4% in June, up from 21.3% from the same time last year. How are people meant to survive? The root cause of this particular increase is Pakistan's deal with the IMF. After months of pleading, a $3 billion standby agreement was reached to avoid what looked like imminent default. A country defaults when it cannot pay its debts or fulfill its financial duties. It is the sign of a failing and mismanaged economy. The IMF acknowledged these failings and put certain conditions on the money it gives to prevent more mismanagement, including forcing the government to put certain taxes on electricity and taking away their power to provide any relief through subsidies. So, our currency is devalued to its lowest point in history, electricity bills have reached their highest point in history, and the government doesn't have the money or the public trust required to make any radical changes. This is the perfect breeding ground for public upheaval. Political analysts suggest that protests, though still peaceful, could worsen and become catastrophic for the stability and economy of the country. Can you blame the people for demanding change? Before the current caretaker government came in, the PDM government had already overseen price increases across a number of everyday goods in a bid to counter the devaluation of the rupee. People were already in dire straits before the electricity bills came and broke the camel's back. The people most affected by these bills are the most vulnerable, the lower and middle classes, with multiple reports of these bills causing people to commit suicide. There are reports coming in from Peshawar of people not being able to access clean water because water pumps require electricity to run. Hospitals and schools are not able to function properly without electricity either. Not to mention our already struggling industries and businesses. Markets have been shutting down in all major cities as a part of a nationwide strike. The economic, social, and political consequences of this crisis are huge, and the worst may still be yet to come. Where's the government in all of this? The unelected caretaker government is bound by the IMF's conditions. Recently, the IMF reportedly gave an updated list of conditions to the government to fulfill before any relief can be provided to bill payers. But that's still under discussion at the time of reporting, and the government won't take any action that the IMF hasn't expressly approved. Reports of government employees enjoying free electricity have pushed public distrust towards leadership even further down the gutter. What's even more unfortunate is that this problem isn't going away anytime soon. Some experts estimate that even if the government pulled itself together in all aspects, implemented new policies, and started fixing the grid, it would still take around 50 years for us to pull ourselves out of our electricity dysfunction. Governments across the world don't like to spend money on long plays like this. If spending now means an impact decades down the line, who's to say that they'll get the credit? Politics is about optics, after all. But even if they really wanted to, how could the government begin fixing this problem? The IMF deal is already done. But what else can they do to finally solve this never-ending crisis? One solution is the decentralization and improvement of our grid. Pakistan's electric grid is too centralized, meaning any breakdown in one part can affect the entire country. The world is moving towards decentralized grids for more efficient distribution, with multiple power backups and control rooms instead of just one. A technological push into the 21st century is badly needed. Experts suggest that smaller areas in a decentralized system could be an opportunity to test solar and wind power, which would help Pakistan meet its renewable energy goals. Currently, 63% of our power comes from fossil fuels. But to update the grid, Pakistan requires a lot of funds. Mismanagement of funds and power in the energy sector has been a constant problem despite who's been in power. The solution is a stable, democratically elected government with a solid mandate to make concrete and precise changes to our crumbling energy sector. One of the first things they should think about is reducing the government footprint in the sector. This doesn't mean simply handing over the reins to private business, even though that did work with K Electric, which reduced its transmission losses from 34% to 15% after being privatized. Under the current system, there is a heap of bureaucratic organizations designed to help the problem, but it can be argued that they're actually making it more difficult to fix. The Ministry of Energy's Power Division has 22 public sector companies and 2 statutory bodies. Then there's NEPRA, WAPDA, and more, all with intersecting areas of interest and their own Daidanchi Masjid. Experts we have spoken to say there are just too many governmental bodies and lament their unprofessional attitudes and ignorance. saying they're a hindrance to any real progress in the sector. Of course, radical changes like this must be done carefully, as consolidating all these bodies could result in areas being neglected. Another large-scale solution is to shift over from imports to local sources of power. We don't need to generate more capacity, but we do need to reduce the cost and burden of importing fuels, especially in the current climate with the war in Ukraine raising global gas and coal prices and the pitiful Pakistani rupee making imports even less affordable. Pakistan has natural resources like Thar coal to fuel itself, but the money needed to fully extract these resources and set up the infrastructure to utilize them is in short supply. Using our local coal would put us even further behind in reaching our renewable energy goals, though. This might seem unimportant in this time of crisis, but climate change affects Pakistan more than most other countries. Jacobabad has become the hottest city on earth. Seasonal patterns are in flux, and extreme weather events like floods destabilize our country even further. Internal cooling accounts for most of our energy consumption, and not having it can have fatal consequences. So, renewable energy isn't an afterthought. It's quickly becoming a necessity. Modern technology like smart meters can also help. Already used in a lot of the developing world, smart meters detect real-time energy use and make billing more precise. They also help root out electricity theft. But what about us, as citizens? What can we do? Not much, we're afraid. You can optimize your energy use by buying a smart meter yourself instead of waiting for one. You could also demand your representatives take immediate, well-informed action. But the average person isn't to blame here. This is a story of successive failures in successive governments. This is, at the heart of it, a symptom of a much larger disease. But there is always hope to be found in an informed and empowered citizenry. Learn more, stay aware, and stay informed with Samjho. Tell us how much your electricity bills increased in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to our page for more.